everyone, and welcome to tonight's edition of my Become Unstoppable series. And I have a lovely guest for you tonight by the name of Sade. So I'm going to bring her up for you. So those of you who don't know me, my name is Julie Fitzpatrick from Middleside Therapy and Coaching, and I support professionals and business owners to unleash the power of their imagination and go deep into their subconscious mind and unlock them from their fears and phobias so that they become unstoppable.
Hi Julie, how are you?
Sweetheart. You got me worried then, big time. You got me worried. I've got a feeling that Instagram have changed everything. But anyway, not to worry. You're here now, thank goodness.
Good to be here, good to be here.
Thank you for those of you who've joined us, and sorry for the performance. We were trying to practice earlier, it didn't work, so we had to go live to practice. It's just been not ideal, love, is it? Not ideal, but it doesn't matter. That's all in the past. You're here now. I can see you, you can see me. Perfect. So welcome, and welcome to everyone that's joining us today, or in anyone who watches this video at a later date. So all I've said so far, my darling, is that your name is Sade, and I'm going to let you introduce yourself and let everyone know who you are, my lovely.
Oh, okay. Thank you for having me, Julie.
Okay.
Not usually on Instagram on the Tuesday evening, but hey, here we are. So I'm Sade Fadipe. I live in Essex. I am a children's book author. I'm an educator, and I'm a mother, a wife, and everything that goes with being a woman. That is who I am.
Oh, amazing. Now, we met, I don't know, probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago at a networking event, didn't we? And we were sitting having a nice little chat, and I just got very inspired by you, and you had some of your beautiful books in your bag with you, so we was looking at those. Then you was telling me about some events and that you're creating, which we'll talk about in a little while. And I just thought you need to come on and share your story. But before we get into your story, as you know, I always ask all my guests this question: what does being unstoppable mean to you?
It means being strong. It means being resilient. It means being a pioneer. It means being unstoppable. If you've got a dream, you've got a vision, you've got, there's something you want to do. Oh gosh, go and do it. Go and do it. Just don't let anything stop you from doing it. And I think the way that unstoppable works for me is if I have an idea, I've got to process it in my mind. And while processing, if I can't see it, I drop it. But the moment I can see it, oh my gosh.
Wow. I love that. So what, the power of your imagination, basically?
Yeah, certainly. If I don't see it, I don't see it. And I let it go. That could be somebody else's dream. It could just have flashed by my mind. But once I see it, that's it.
I love that. I love that. So are you really good at goal setting and doing the old visualization work to manifest wonderful things then? Or how's it work for you? Or is it just something that you just have it in your head and it either stays there or you reject it?
I am probably the most unstructured person you've ever. I call myself a scatterbrain, but having said that, I look back and think, okay, it's not that bad being a scatterbrain. I'm at some point able to bring all those wires together and pull those ideas together, but it always starts off with 100 wires springing from my brain. But the moment I get it. And then, I love working with people. And so some of the visions that I have, I'm quite fortunate to have people who might share the same visions and just need that extra person. to say, hey, let's do this, and then it happens.
Yeah, and that's really lovely, and I like that, because that's about being around like-minded people, isn't it? And then if you are around people that are on your same vibe or on your same vibration, then that really helps, doesn't it? Because then you can bounce ideas off of each other, and that's called you know intuition, isn't it? Like someone will say something, oh, this happened. This actually happened to me very recently, actually. So I was on one of my training groups, because I've got lots of like-minded people groups, which I really love. And we were actually doing intuition work. And the idea is that you go to this session with your intention. And I was with this lovely lady called Anne, who was on my Instagram live a couple of weeks ago. And she's a relationship coach. And her intention was, I've got my podcast, but I want to come up with something different. I want another dynamic to it. Anyway, so we were doing backwards and forwards, and we come up with the idea of having like a panel of relationship experts. Then I said, oh, do you know what? I know some of those in my business goal circle. I can see if they're interested. Anyway, we did that. And last week we spent a good few hours together, and we recorded 3 podcasts, and we got another session booked in a couple of weeks, and we're going to have it on YouTube, and it's going to be called Relationship Secrets Unleashed. And it's such a mixed bunch, because one of them is actually all of them have been on my Instagram. So one is an international matchmaker, one's a Muslim matrimonial coach, one's a divorce relationship coach who's based in Ireland. So there's obviously different dynamics there. And then Anne, who's the relationship coach, and myself as the therapist and coach, because a lot of work I do with my clients is normally related in somehow to relationships. So we've all got that connection, but that was just from having a conversation, chatting backwards and forwards, being on the same wavelength. And look what we've created, which I think's, well, it will be amazing, because we're 5 amazing women, right? So why wouldn't it be? But that was just from having conversations. And now you're here on this Instagram live with me, from us just having a conversation. And then towards the end of the interview, well, I want everyone to know what you've been up to, because you've got some events coming up. So I need them to stay on the line, stay here to find out what you're up to. So do you want to, before we get into that, do you want to just tell us, so at the moment you're actually teaching still, you're a teacher, and then you're an author, and you're doing all sorts, aren't you? So how did you end up being and doing what you're doing?
So I spent the last 1 year studying. Just finished a master's degree in creative writing and publishing. And a lot of people ask, oh, but you're already published. Why do you need a degree?
Very good question. And what was your answer?
What's my answer? Well, it sums up everything I've done in life. My first degree was in linguistics. And I worked within that field, and then I went into teaching. Of course, sometimes I feel that having the backing and having the qualifications and the career backing helps get into the industry. And especially because of what I want to do within the industry. I don't just want to write books. I want to be able to encourage other people to write books, to get their stories out. And that helps, having that professional qualification helps with them trusting me with their content, and knowing that this is a career for me. So, it's beyond just publishing my own books. And yeah, so there's so much out there that I want to do, especially because of the mission behind the Children and Literary Fanfare that I run on a yearly basis.
What's that? What's your mission?
So the mission really is to make culturally diverse books available to all children, irrespective of race. And that goes back to when I was growing up. And we say this a lot, and it's become, a cliche. But what it does do is that it kind of like runs one's self-esteem down. When I was growing up, there was absolutely nothing that looked like me. And so I grew up being very shy. I wouldn't talk. I wouldn't put my hands up. I was the only black girl in the class, only black girl in the county, only black girl for miles. So having that kind of background and then not having books. So I can't see myself in people and I can't see myself in books. So I was 6 when our parents took us to Nigeria, and it was the same thing. We were reading the cream primer. We used the cream primer to learn how to read. We were reading books that were from England. And that didn't help either. It didn't help with self-esteem because I thought that going into a space where everyone looked like me, I thought that, that was some kind of leeway into finding my identity. But I ended up being lost. So I was lost here and I was lost over there. So when I when I became a mother, I think that was one of the things that I kind of thought, actually, I want my children to be confident in who they are. We took them to Nigeria. They had some really fantastic time out there getting to understand their identity, because I was no good at doing that. That wasn't something I was able to do because I was grappling with who I was. And that really helped them. And it was while I was out there that I noticed that it was still the case, where there were no indigenous picture books, and where they were far more expensive than the Goldilocks and the Three Bears, the Little Red Riding Hood. They were far more expensive than the foreign books because no one was buying them. Everyone thought that you've got to have foreign books to be teaching the right curriculum. And then you wonder why everyone wants to come into another country, why everyone wants to cross the ocean. If their countries are being bombarded with the European books, then that is the model. So
you do hear that a lot, actually. A lot of famous people. I mean, don't ask me who now because I can't remember. But you see people like black people on telly talking about the things that they were up against when they were younger or moving into this country and things like that. It's been going on for years, isn't it? But I have heard that a lot, that they said they didn't have anyone to aspire to, because it's about seeing someone of your same colour, your same culture or whatever that is famous, I suppose, isn't it? So that you've got someone to aspire to. And
very true.
I mean, I'd like to think that's changed a lot now, but maybe it hasn't as much. So how long are you going back years-wise in terms of saying that it hasn't really changed and the books are still not really showing aspirational people that the kids can follow?
So I'm going back 2 decades specifically. So as far back as 2020, 2003, 2004, 2005, which is the time when I was out in the country. Went to live in Nigeria for a bit with my family. And I became a reading consultant to the government, and they wanted me to do something about the reading culture. And that was the first thing. That was the first thing that I addressed, getting our kind of books into schools. But it took me a good 2-3 years to find the quantity that I needed, and it was very scarce. And then I thought, actually, why don't I do something about it? Why don't I write something that would help the teachers think about indigenous content? So when I wrote my first script, it wasn't for me to become a published author. It was to take to the teacher training to say, hey, look, this is something you can do. Why not create content for these children? They've never seen an apple. You're saying A for apple. They've never seen. Coincidentally, I left the script at home, and that was going to be my gift on the last day of the training. But I left it at home, and I did hit myself a bit for leaving it at home, not realizing that very soon after I was going to be talking to somebody who told me that their friend has a new publishing company. I thought, oh my gosh, I've just written a script.
Chuck.
I've just written a script. And so that big fact that I'd written a script, but I'd written it for teachers. My friend had a company, a friend to a friend had a new publishing company, and it became the answer. I was the answer to that problem. And that was how my author journey began. So I never really set out to become an author. I'm not one of those people who had dreams of being authors, but what I am doing now is exactly what I used to do when I was in Nigeria, curating, looking for books, looking for authors, putting their work out there, putting their work into schools. And somehow it just seems to be the same thing that I'm doing here, because even though we've got lots of books in our libraries, gradually, in terms of the statistics and the number of Black books that children have access to, the percentages are growing. But I question how many of these books get into the homes. So it's one thing for the schools to buy the books. It's another thing for the libraries to have the books. But until parents and children share that experience together of reading a book where there are only Black children in it, it doesn't resonate with the home. So a child could be getting a cultural experience at school, but when they come home, they could be faced with something different, which in itself creates conflict. Yeah, and in this day and age where we're still faced with, racism, we're still faced with racism, and as Black people, we're still, we have coping strategies, and some of those strategies are negative. So there needs to be synergy somewhere. So with the children and literary fun fair that I run on a yearly basis, I love the fact that it's within a home. Parents can log on, they've got their children, they're listening to Black authors, they're listening to Black poets, they're listening to a Black illustrator. They're having that shared experience together.
Is that the online event that you've got coming up?
Yes, that's the online event. Yes, it is. Yes.
So do you want, what date and how do they get onto that then? Tell us a little bit about that.
So the link is in my bio, Sade's Book Zone, and that's on the 27th of October. And that's an online event from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. And we've also, for the very first time, we're having a live event at Chelmsford Museum. I mean, that on its own, honestly, that really is the cherry on the cake. That's the cherry on the icing on the cake, the lemonade on the.
It's the best thing, right? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes.
So what date's that? The real life one?
That's the 28th. That is the 28th,
right? And that's at Chelmsford Museum in Essex.
Yes, it is, from 10:30 to 3:30. 10:30 in the morning to 3:30 in the afternoon. And we've got two authors coming from Manchester, one coming from Luton, and another one coming from Berkshire, one coming from Kent, and it's going to be an amazing time. We are going to tell stories, we're going to play games, we're going to dress up in African attires, we're going to have a music workshop, we're going to have a spice. Oh my gosh, we're using the museum kitchen, we're going to have some spice workshops. There's a lovely lady who's a chef. She's going to bring some plantain cake. Wow. It's going to be a lovely, 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 lovely event. I mean, I can't even, I'm excited. I feel like a child. I just feel like sitting back now watching everything happen.
Was this your vision? One of your visions then to put on this event?
It was. I just didn't see it happening this soon. I didn't, it was. And what happens, especially with the online event, which started during the pandemic, what I love the most about that one is how the children use the chat box. The children
Oh,
go
really?
wild. Oh my gosh, they go wild on the chat box. They ask the author questions, and we've got a number of hosts. So, you know, there are lots of people who are watching out for the children, watching out for the audience, reading the children's comments, asking the authors questions. That on its own, I mean, you know, even if we didn't have the physical one, I'm happy. But I'm super, 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 super happy that Chelmsford Museum is partnering with us this year to run the car for the very first time.
And we've got someone on here who's so excited for this event as well,
Oh,
Queen.
oh, Queen! Hello, baby
And I think what's important to let everybody know, this event is completely free, isn't it?
Oh yes, it is free. It is completely free, completely free. And we've got some workshops. Some of the workshops within the museum aren't free, but we still have the same workshop on a larger scale. So everyone gets to take part in some way, form or other.
Brilliant. I think that's amazing. And some of the, when I saw you at the networking event and I was looking through some of your books, the illustrations in them were really, really lovely. Do you want to tell us a little bit about where the inspiration come from those?
So I'm not an illustrator, and when I made contact with my publisher, the process was swift. We had the editing done, but it took a good 3 years to get an illustrator, and that was because we needed somebody to connect with the story in the way that depicts even beyond what I thought that my script was about. And so we came across this amazing illustrator who was able to, and being indigenous and having had that lived experience, because my book is about a rural setting. The setting is rural, and it's a child who goes to visit her grandfather, although she lives in a city. And so her experiences are that of someone who's grown in a city, but she loves going into the outskirts. She loves going into those rural spaces and just share the life with children that her age, but haven't had the experiences that she's had. In a way, that kind of like, people ask if I'm writing about myself, not subconsciously. So I'm not writing about myself, being conscious. But somehow, the things that I think about and that I experience, they come through subconsciously. So that book in itself, when I used to visit my grandfather as a child, it used to remind me of my rural village in Kent, in Rovenden, which is in Tenterden in Kent. And that used to be the connection that I'd make. Every time I went to my grandfather's house, I'd think about my nan, so there's that connection. So when I first saw the illustrations, I cried because I don't know how somebody who's never met me, who's never known me, can depict something that was so special. But it's that indigenousness that I wanted, that he captured. And, I couldn't have gotten that from an illustrator who didn't have that experience. So
it's interesting. Yeah, it's very interesting about like you're talking about your subconscious mind, but that really is where all our stories and memories and feelings and emotions are held anyway. So the fact that you have, not consciously asked yourself to go and look for them, but your subconscious has taken over anyway, which isn't that big a deal if you think of it like this, that 5% of our brain is conscious, 95% is subconscious. So as long as we put ourselves in a like a calm mode, and we are breathing and we're calm and we're not stressed and we're not overwhelmed and we're relaxed, then that's when we tap into our subconscious mind anyway. So maybe when you were writing it, thinking it, visioning it, you would have been in that nice relaxed state, and it was really tapping into your subconscious and picking it up from there, which is what you want, really, because you've written a book from your heart, and like, and that's brilliant. And I think we're not going to have time to go into too much of your story at the moment, but I think even what you've described, you know, living in Nigeria and England, having to deal with different cultures and things like that have happened, and a lot of people have that belief of maybe feeling different, and maybe one of those main beliefs, and you've had to spend your life like being unstoppable, haven't you? You've had dips in your life that you've had to pull yourself out from, and you've done that many times. And I don't know if you can summarize that quickly or not, it doesn't matter if you can't, but I think the fact that you've delved deep every time you've come up with a new career, you haven't just done it, you've done it, haven't you? You've gone real delve deep and come out with this full qualification.
I think that kind of sums it for me. Yeah, I think when I do something, I want to do it really well. And maybe there might be obstacles along the way, but I think that's part of the challenge. And I love that challenge. I mean, you know, even when I teach, I keep saying that year 2 is my favorite year, only because that's when we get to work really hard. You know, we get to get, and then we see our results. You know, I can say, oh, you did really well. That's the scores you got in your, you know, in your comprehension, in your writing, your reasoning. So yeah, I love challenges. But I think the passion is important, because sometimes the passion has to match the challenge. There's no point in you going through challenges without the passion. I mean, that on its own is
yeah. And you don't want unnecessary challenges. It's good for things to, you don't want to be continually challenged, do you? But it does make us who we are. But sometimes it can also be the making of us. True. Sometimes it can be that it was unfair and it was unjust, but again, it will be the making of us. I just think sometimes when, for someone, you know, you've grown up in quite challenging times, the fact that you had to keep digging deep was good, but it also probably meant sometimes that you had to dig deep when you shouldn't have had to have done. You know, maybe I wouldn't have had to have done, maybe because I didn't have those same challenges as you. So then there's kind of an element that is a bit of frustration, isn't it? That why did you have to keep having those challenges and having to keep overcoming them? I know it's great you are where you are, and you know you're a amazing human being. But hopefully some challenges that you've gone through, because you've gone through them and you can write your books and tell your stories, other people won't have to go through them.
Yeah, I think we've all got our own stories, and no two lives are the same. And somehow, I mean, there's some things, I mean, challenges and mistakes are two different things. You know, you could make a mistake and you don't want anyone else to go down that lane. But with challenges, sometimes it could be because of your background, your upbringing, the things that have happened within your family dynamics. It could be anything. I mean, I spent 10 good years getting my GCSEs, you know. It's and that was a challenge. That was, and I can't say at that point in time there were mistakes that I made as a child. All I'd say is I had difficulties. I had, you know, I was confused. I didn't understand how the way that I was being taught, and so that in itself, I wouldn't see those as mistakes. I'll just see them as circumstances that I found myself in. And with time, I got to realize that I have to do the work. You know, I have to challenge myself. I have to focus. I have to understand what I want. And it was only when I understood and put my foot down and you know, did say, you know, my parents wanted me to do one thing and I wasn't going to go down that lane. It was only when I was able to tell my parents face to face and say, I don't want to be that, you know,
Mm.
that I finally broke through. And I gained the boldness to study. I'd always wanted to be a teacher, which I couldn't tell my parents because as far as they were concerned, that wasn't the right course for me.
What did they want you
You
to do then, and not, if it wasn't to be a teacher?
know, they're typical African parents, aren't they? I don't know. I think somehow they thought, oh, that shit, you know, it'd be good for you to be a doctor. And
Oh,
then, you know,
oh, I
and
see.
I thought, well, okay, it'd be good for me to be a doctor, but I do need to pass all my sciences, which I didn't. And then when I passed all my arts, it would be good for you to be a lawyer like me. And I think that was the first time I looked at my dad and I said, Dad, I'm never going to be a lawyer. I don't want to be a
How did
lawyer.
you deal with that then? Because there must be a lot of people that have been in a similar situation as you, or currently are in a similar situation where they are kind of being led, shall we say, on what they should do, but it's not what they really want. What advice would you give to anyone who's in a similar situation?
I think parenting has come a long way. I think parents have changed. I think there are very few parents that are currently like that. I think we've learned our lessons. Um, phew, I I I would just say understand your child. You know, just trust your child. Trust that there's greatness within your child. Trust that your child has come with a destiny, has come with a mind of their own. Um, just trust, you know, trust that, you
So
know,
that's kind
this
of from a
person.
parent's perspective, isn't it? But what would that be like from a child's perspective, who they really know that they're going to be letting their parents down if they choose their own route? Is it more of a case of, if you really, really believe that's what you want to do, then you need to stick to your guns?
I would stick to my guns. I would say stick to your guns.
Mm.
You have just this one life to live. Um, you can be diplomatic about it, but if it's not working, I don't know. I mean, I think this country, where you're not, once you get to the age 18, you're not that financially dependent on your parents. So you do have an opportunity
Mm.
to, you know, help your parents understand that this is the way, this is the course, this is the track that I want to pursue. But if your parents are financing you, then that becomes more of a challenge
Mm.
because, you know, that could be the power, that could be the hold that they have over you.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's a tricky one.
it is a
It's a
tricky
tricky
one, isn't
one.
it? Because
Mm.
I haven't had any yet, but from some of the training that I've done
Mm.
with, like Marissa Peer, who I did my rapid transformational therapy training, she talks about people all the time. And I'm reading a book at the moment, when it says it's when your body says no, um,
Mm.
and it's about how our body is our whole subconscious mind, right? But a particular story that I was thinking of, I think she was a ballerina, and she was really, as a child, she loved being a ballerina, but her parents wanted her to really be a ballerina, and she got to the point where she was like done with it. She didn't want to do it anymore, and not consciously, but in like her subconscious, all of a sudden she started getting, she couldn't move her legs properly and things like that. And I think she got multiple MS or something like that. But actually, it was her subconscious mind coming up with something that would stop her from being able to do it anymore, because she couldn't walk properly, so she couldn't be a ballet dancer. Same way that there's a story about someone who, as a musician, and the family really, really wanted them to be like a really successful musician, but they didn't really want to do it. And then the next thing they know, she couldn't move her hands. I think she played like some clarinet, or I don't know, some trombone or something. And then her body just froze and she couldn't use her fingers anymore. Now they're not doing this consciously, but this is a part of them that's been created so that they don't need to do that anymore. And this happens to people a lot with physical conditions as well, where there's a part of them that gets created, but again, it's not conscious. But I just find it really interesting because as a parent, we have to make sure that we like you say, let them choose within reason, obviously, what they want to do. But it's about opening their minds up to what's out there and thinking outside of the box, isn't it? And going for what your true passion is. What is it that you really love? And you might know this actually as a teacher, that around about the age of 7, apparently as an adult, if you was to try and remember what you loved doing when you were 7 or around about that age, that would give you an indication of what you should be doing as an adult. Have you heard that before?
Certainly. And that was exactly my case. I was lining my dolls up and teaching them. I had a board. And that was what I was doing, 6, 7, 8. That's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to teach. But I couldn't voice it because I knew that in their eyes that was not professional enough. So yeah.
And there you are. Not only are you a teacher with multiple qualifications, you've got, how many books have you got published now?
I've got three published
books. Yeah, and more to come, no doubt. And you're hosting these amazing events to get the mission out there that, it's everyone's right to be able to read books and read books that reflect their culture.
Exactly. And for other people to, and for people to read books that are written by Black authors that, where they're Black children and not feel that it's for, because a lot of the time I keep hearing people ask me, oh, so your books are for Black children. Actually, my bookshelf is full of books with white children.
Yeah,
so
yeah, you, like you say, you don't have to be Black to read them, do you? It's just having another insight into another culture.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's a very good point, actually, isn't it? It's about making sure that white families and different other cultural families do buy these books, because it is about seeing that all the different sides, isn't it?
Very true. Very true.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So I'm hoping to come along to your event on the 28th because I wanted to come and support you. But also, as we discussed at the time, one of my clients is a budding author, and she's going to hopefully come along if she can get time off work as well, because it goes back to what we were saying at the beginning about mixing with people. If you want to be a millionaire, hang around millionaires. If you want to be an author, hang around authors, right? So I think that's great. And what we were saying during this interview is about everyone's got their story.
Yeah.
And that is so true. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter whether you think you aren't anyone in particular. You are. We've all got our own stories. We're all unique. We're all individuals. And we were all born and delivered in this world for a reason, right? So we need to find our purpose and passion if we don't know what it is, so that we can live our best life and we can become unstoppable. And I know we haven't had time to go into too much of your story, but from the conversations we had before, I know that you are an example of someone who is truly unstoppable, someone who has had to dig deep on multiple occasions and has come out. And not only have you come out the other side, you've come out smiling and you've come out inspirational, and you've come out, not only that, you're helping other people to tell their story and so they can potentially become unstoppable too, right? So I take my hat off to you. I think you're an amazing lady.
Oh,
and I'm so glad I met you, and I'm so glad that you were able to come, and we eventually got you up on our Instagram live tonight. Is there anything else before we wrap up that you would like to let anyone else know about?
Oh, I'd just love to say it's been an interesting evening. I love your series. The word unstoppable is probably the energy that I need to keep me going to the end of the month, because there's so much to do. I need to really become unstoppable, especially this month. I think it's just been lovely. On Thursday, at Ignite Chelmsford, I will be speaking, talking about some of the things that we've talked about today. And probably with some images about, things that I do, the way that I do them, the people that I work with. I work with some amazing people. I've got another Instagram group, page called Kiddie Writers, and we've been going since 2018. And so a lot of these kiddie writers will be coming to Chelmsford, and we will be doing our thing. So it's not just me. I always work with people, and I'm fortunate to have these wonderful people that, believe in this dream and believe that, we should just carry on being the best that we can, creating content to the best of our ability. So thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. So for
Thank
anyone
you.
that's watching live now, I will post this video up on Instagram, and then anyone else can watch it afterwards. So what I will do, I'll tag you in this so that they can go to your Instagram where they'll find your bio. But this will also be repurposed on my Millicide Therapy and Coaching YouTube channel. And then in the content page in there, I can put more details in there, so you can give me some more links and things to put in there as well. So thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for everyone who's watched and anyone that watches this in the future. If it's depending on when they watch this, but if they still got time on the 27th of October, they can join your online event, or the 28th of October, your all-day event in Chelmsford Museum, where it's going to be absolutely amazing. And fingers crossed, I'll be there to support you as well. Thank you so much, darling. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you
And
so
I
much for
shall let
having
you
me.
know. Yeah, I'll tag you when the video goes up. All right, darling. Thank you
Thank
ever
you
so
very much.
much, everyone. Take care.
Thank
Oh,
you,
thank you,
everyone. Thank you for
Whitney.
joining. Thank you, Queen.
Oh, she's all the way from
Oh,
Zimbabwe. How amazing.
yes, it is. She is. She'll be there on Friday, the 27th. You'll
Oh,
see
I'll
her.
meet you there then, Queen. Thank you for joining us. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.